Okay.
Hello class, my name is Victor Rodriguez. My overall topic is on the death penalty. And well, I have in mind that people think by having the death penalty enforced in our society, it it brings justice towards our community. But little do they know that it doesn't influence criminals to commit or make the right decisions when it comes to committing a crime. Therefore, my major claim is that the death penalty did not deter crime in our society for the reasons that one, murder rates are at a constant, two, there is irony towards the death penalty, and three, the death penalty isn't as certain as it's supposed to be. In support, I mentioned that the murder rates are consistently the same. So Michael L. Radlin, a professor and associate chair of the Department of Sociology at the University of Colorado, expressed that the scientific studies have consistently failed to demonstrate that executions deter people from demonstrate that executions deter people from committing crime any more than long prison sentences. Moreover, states without the death penalty have much lower murder rates. The South accounts for 80% of the United States executions and has the highest regional murder rate. So what Michael L. Radlin actually basically says is that whether or not the criminals are sentenced to prison or actually execution, it doesn't really make a significant difference towards murder rates, because the murder rates it actually shows. I actually had a chart that I viewed, and it basically mentioned or showed that in a 5-year span between the years of 2000 to 2005, the murder rates in the United States, in the states that have the death penalty, started at a 5.7, and by 2005 had actually increased up to a 5.8. Opposed to the states that without the death penalty, the death rates within the 5 years were 4.25 to a 4.03, which was actually a decrease in the murder rates. So it's actually somewhat type of an irony or contrary towards the states that without the death penalty, because it has a decrease. And basically the states with the death penalty is basically to deter other criminals, and however it's not doing what it's supposed to be, which leads to my second supporting claim, which is the irony of the death penalty. I believe it has to do with something more of retribution, and basically retribution is the punishment that is considered to be morally right and fully deserved by morally right and fully deserved. But however, by taking the life of another individual is not the rational response to this situation, or this critical situation, in this case the death penalty. And while I see it as by killing one person that has killed a loved one only continues the cycle of violence, which leads to the second quote that I have right here that was mentioned by Michael L. Radlin as well. He said that 75% of respondents towards the criminologist agree that debates about the death penalty distract Congress and state legislators from focusing on real solutions to crime problems. And basically, what the irony, it basically prevents the death penalty from deterring criminals by Congress and legislators being focused on other minor problems rather than focusing on the major ones, or the general issue of whether or not it should be, or how to improve the ways of deterring crime. So I think with that, it makes it seem the death punishment not really as certain as it's supposed to be, because there's many states with different laws for killing. States like Hawaii, Maryland, New York, and others actually abolished the death penalty, which actually makes it more uncertain as to whether or not the death penalty should be allowed in the first place. So, and it's also unfair or uncertain in which a criminal in Hawaii could actually not get away, but not have as much of a consequence as to whether a criminal in California, where he is convicted with a violent act of murder, and he'll actually be sentenced to execution or death by either lethal gas or injection. So it basically comes down to either make the death punishment effective or don't have it at all, because if it's not doing it with what it's supposed to do, and I think it defeats the purpose of actually having it around. So in conclusion, my claim is that the death penalty does not deter crime for the same reasons that it doesn't decrease increase nor decrease the murder rate significantly. There's irony towards it, and lastly, because it needs to be more accurate. Thank you for your time, and I hope you allow me to do my purpose.
What's the time?
5:30.
All right, well, you identify the subject, and at the beginning it sounds like it's going to be both a value and a claim of fact, so you're dealing with two issues there. Then you state the proposition, and you've got negative phrasing in the proposition, and you have stuck to a factual claim with the proposition itself. But then the secondary claims come up, and the second and the third points are really value-based issues, so there's some inconsistency in the way the issues are being developed on this particular point. On your first point, the explanation that you have is not very clear, and it needs to be simpler and more direct. I don't think that it's that complicated. You're basically saying that there is insufficient evidence to conclude that the death penalty deters. Keep it a simple statement. The language that you use got a little convoluted. You had the good evidence on regional comparisons there. You had some statistical information about the murder rates in states or places where they have the death penalty versus those that don't have the death penalty. You want to make sure to give the source citation on that. It sounds like most of your evidence came from the one source, because that was the one I heard being quoted consistently, but I'm sure that you got some data from some other sources too, but they were not really cited as consistently. Like I said, the second and the third points are really value issues, arguing that something is unjust or it's immoral in some way. It's merely perpetuating the cycle of violence. Well, that might be a claim of fact, but you don't offer any proof for it. And the other one on the third point basically comes down to it's not fair that some criminal in California is going to be treated differently than some criminal in Hawaii. And that's definitely a value claim that you're dealing with there. The general evidence that you have, you cited pretty well, and like I said, you usually gave a source citation, but it did seem like most of it came from a single source. On your delivery, you're reading way too much, and your voice drops out pretty frequently. And coming back to this idea that there's irony towards the death penalty, that's a fancy way of expressing a concept, and I'm not even sure I know what it means. You need to keep the claims simple declarative statements, and it'll be much more effective as a speech. All right. Thank you.